Now available on Kickstarter, John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this all-new Kickstarter exclusive John Haynes comic book. Put in your pledge and get the standard, variant, or retro covers of John Haynes at Death's Door and other great stretch goal rewards on Kickstarter today. One of my viewers sent me a story about a 16-year-old boy from Virginia who drove all the way to Orlando, Florida, seeking revenge on the parents of a 13-year-old girl and police officers who were investigating the exploitation of this teenage girl. Now, this 16-year-old boy had been in contact online with this 13-year-old girl and allegedly was getting this 13-year-old girl to send him explicit pictures of her through the smartphones that she had. And as this was going on, the police in Orlando, Florida, were alerted by the girl's parents, and the girl's parents had the police do an investigation to find out who was getting their daughter to take these sexually explicit photos and send them online. And they soon found out it was allegedly this 16-year-old boy, and once this 16-year-old boy was found to be the suspect in the investigation, the 16-year-old boy wound up exploding in a rage, and he wound up driving over 700 miles to try to murder the girl's parents and possibly one of the police officers. Now, the police are seeing this as a disturbing incident, but when I take a critical examination of the really disturbing behavior here, it fits right in line with the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And when I look at the behavior of this 16-year-old boy, it fits right in line with the chapters I talk about regarding the sexual frustration of the beta male and the sexual deviancy of the beta male. And this beta male was really driven to rage because he was the parents revealed the secret world he was participating in deviant behavior with this 13-year-old girl. Now, when it comes down to these beta males, they oftentimes do not know how to express themselves sexually, and because they do not know how to express themselves sexually in a healthy way, they go to a place I call the secret world to participate in sexual behavior. And that's what this 16-year-old boy was doing online with this 13-year-old girl. He was participating in deviant sexual acts by getting this 13-year-old girl to send him explicit pictures of herself, and he was in the secret world enjoying his fantasies that he was participating in with this girl's pictures. And as he was in this secret world participating in these deviant sexual acts, eventually it looks like the parents found out about it, and they went to the law enforcement in Orlando to be able to deal with this situation. And as they were dealing with this situation and they found out where this boy was in Virginia, what happened was this boy, after having the secret world being revealed, he wound up simmering and boiling in anger for several months before exploding in this rage, where he decided that he was going to steal his parents' vehicle and he was going to drive over 700 miles to participate in this revenge, where he was going to possibly do harm to the 13-year-old girl's parents and possibly do harm to the officers investigating the crime. Now, when I look at this whole situation, it reminds me a lot of mass shooter Peyton Gendron, who came to the top supermarket in Buffalo and murdered 10 black people, all because he hated black people. And again, it just shows you how depraved your beta males can be when things don't go their way. Because to go to the extreme of stealing your parents' vehicle, driving 700 miles just shows us how your beta male, when he's out here, he just gets so obsessed with his internal vision, he doesn't really think about the consequences of his actions, and he does not think critically about the situation. Now, the 16-year-old boy was already in trouble for soliciting sexual content from a minor, which is possibly, I believe, a federal offense. And if he wasn't a minor, he would be looking at doing some serious time for getting this girl to participate in child pornography. And he possibly was looking at doing a lot of time just on that one charge alone. But now that he's escalated things, he's going to wind up doing more time for the attempt to murder a member of law enforcement and an attempt to murder the girl's parents. But when it comes down to many of your beta males, many of these males were never raised how to think, to learn how to think critically, and that's because usually in a lot of cases these males don't have much interaction with their fathers, who don't teach them male life skills and male survival skills. And because they don't learn male life skills and male survival skills, they take on these feminine social traits. And as they're taking on these feminine social traits, they're out here doing things like trying to escape to the secret world because they do not know how to be able to behave in a healthy way as related to expressing themselves sexually. Because many of these beta males, they go out here and they create fantasies around people like this. I believe this male was around this 13-year-old girl, and as he was in his fantasies about this 13-year-old girl, and he got so upset because his world got shattered that he wanted to go out here and destroy the world of those parents and the police officers who were investigating them. And again, it just shows how sick and depraved your beta male is, because your beta male, he really is not living in our reality. He's living in a rose-colored world, and in that rose-colored world where he's having his secret fantasies, he believes that he's justified in going out here and looking at pictures of a 13-year-old girl who is basically a child, and he's also believing that he is justified in taking the lives of individuals who are basically looking to protect a teenager from being exploited by a male who is participating in predatory behavior. Now, this beta male believed that he was so justified in his actions from living in that rose-colored reality. He was sitting there talking about how God has commanded him to kill the police officers and the parents. And again, this just shows you how disturbed many of your beta males are as related to living in their rose-colored reality, because the Most High God would not command anybody to kill anyone, because that's a violation of his commandments, and he would not want anybody to kill someone over something that this individual that was doing wrong. Now, some people would sit there and say, oh, this individual has mental health issues, but no, this is not a mental health issue. When it comes down to a lot of these beta males, they may appear on the surface to look like they're mentally ill, but in a lot of cases, these guys know exactly what they're doing, and they're making these plans with malice of forethought, and oftentimes they do these things deliberately because they are spoiled and entitled, and they can't get their way. And when they can't get their way, what they do is they start acting emotionally and acting erratically, and then going out here and making up plans to go out here and do harm to others, because their world has been shattered. And because their world has been shattered and they cannot no longer participate in their deviant behaviors in the secret world, and people now know about their deviancy, again, well, this is what motivates them to go out here and participate in violence against people. This is what motivates them to look to do harm to others, and this is what motivates them to go out here and seek out revenge on others. Again, there is nothing wrong with this 16-year-old male. No, he's just spoiled and entitled, and he doesn't want to be held accountable for his actions. So he thinks that he is justified in doing harm to others, but the whole thing is that he's out here thinking that he can do harm to others because he has had his world shattered, so he wants to destroy the world of others around him. And this is what people get twisted about your beta male. This beta male, he thinks he's justified in doing whatever he wants to others without ever thinking about the consequences to other people. This individual got in a vehicle that he stole, drove 700 miles to Orlando, Florida, in a chase that topped over 100 miles an hour. And again, all because he was in his feelings about getting caught in participating in deviant sexual behavior. Because only a sexual deviant is going to go out here and and look at pictures of a minor and think that this is something okay. I don't care if this boy was 16 years old. Again, this is deviant sexual behavior, and this is the type of behavior your beta male participates in because he doesn't, again, have anybody to teach him how to express himself sexually, and this behavior will escalate in the future if it's not caught like it is right now. This individual was on his road to becoming a pedophile, on his road to becoming a sexual deviant, and on his road to participating in further deviant sexual acts. And thank God somebody was able to catch this individual before he escalated his behavior, because individuals who participate in sexual deviancy in the secret world, they oftentimes escalate their behavior if they're not caught, and they go from looking at pictures in their fantasy world to interacting with people in the real world. And as they're interacting with people in the real world, they look to do harm to individuals because they don't see people as people. No, they learn to see people as objects, because in the secret world, people are not people. No, they are just objects in his fantasy. And the whole thing is that because he sees people as objects in his fantasy, he has no problems doing harm to those who are in his fantasy world. So this guy is, again, he's a clear and present danger, and it just shows you how extreme these beta males will go to participate in their deviant behavior and their violence. And when I look at this 16-year-old, he's just 2 years away from your Peyton Gedron, who went to the Tops supermarket to participate in that horrific mass shooting of black people. I mean, it just shows how depraved these beta males are and how they will go to extreme lengths to participate in their violence. Now, you can't sit here and say that this was a gun control issue. No, in this case, we have a beta male looking to go out here and participate in violence, and he was just out here looking to just hurt these parents and this police officer, all for protecting a child. And it just shows how far these beta males will go to their extremes, and how these beta males are a clear and present danger to everyone, because these beta males, they act on their feelings, they act on their impulses, and they don't ever think about the consequences of their actions. And what's really, I thank God that this situation was handled by law enforcement, and they got this guy before he could do harm to someone. And now he's going to be going to a juvenile facility, possibly for the next 4 or 5 years, and that's where he will learn that his deviant behavior is actually deviant, and possibly this individual will get some help. But this whole incident shows how much worse the man crisis is getting in this country, and how we really need to start thinking about how the way we're raising boys to become men, because as this man crisis continues to get worse, we're seeing not only an increase in frequency as related to the violence that's going on in this country as related to the man crisis, but we're seeing the ages of these individuals get younger and younger. Peyton Gedron was 18 years old. The Uvalde shooter was 18 years old. This male was 16 years old, and is clearly showing us a pattern as related to the way we're raising boys to become men, and that we're not raising boys to become healthy men, because these boys at early ages are participating in these deviant acts, like in the case of this individual, and they are getting ready to participate in more violent acts. And again, I talked about this as related to the man crisis. I said that that we would see an increase in frequency of this violence, and what's more disturbing is we're seeing younger and younger males participating in this violence, and that's because there are no fathers in the home, there are no men in the community to teach these boys male life skills and male survival skills, and many of these males, they're sitting there imbibing things like pornography, and they're imbibing this pornography and they're buying into these disturbing sexual fantasies at an early age, the same way Elliot Rodger bought into pornography, and that's what's leading to these males, again, like this one, getting into sexual deviancy at an early age and getting so frustrated that he could not participate in sexual deviancy that he thought, oh, I'm going to go out here and participate in violence so that I can be able to participate in sexual deviancy. That's what's really disturbing about this whole case as related to this male, and it shows how much worse the man crisis is getting. And what's really disturbing is most of America won't acknowledge the man crisis, and they won't acknowledge the clear and present danger that the man crisis is causing in this country. And many on the left don't want to talk about it, many on the right don't want to talk about it, because their policies created this beta male, and this beta male is short-circuiting, malfunctioning all across the country, and nobody wants to talk about the man crisis. No, they'd rather deflect and talk about gun violence, but in this case, there were no guns involved, and this young man was looking to participate in deviant violence and deviant sexual acts, and the whole thing is that people are not acknowledging that we have a real serious problem with the way we're raising boys to become men, and the boys that we're out here are getting younger and more violent because there are no fathers and no family structure to prepare these boys for manhood. And because these boys are not being prepared for manhood, they're becoming landmines, because after the lockdowns, we have seen the fuses on many of these males get shorter, and these males, it's the scary part is, it's not a question of if they're going to explode in rage, it's a matter of when they're going to explode in rage and the damage that they'll do when they explode in this rage. Now, I thank God these officers were able to stop this individual before he could do harm to others, and he's sitting there thinking that God commanded him to kill people. No, that wasn't God at all, because God is love, and he is not about the lust that this individual was in, because it was the lust that was driving him to participate in this violence, and he was participating in this violence because he was so in his lust to participate in sexual deviancy that he thought that he had the justification to take the lives of these officers and this girl's parents. And it just shows us why we need to really rethink the way we're raising boys to become men, because it's clear to me that this generation of boys need the guidance of men so that they can avoid becoming men in crisis like this young man wound up becoming. Now, if you want to learn more on how these beta males become dysfunctional and wind up participating in this kind of violence, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see me do more men's issues videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman. Hell's Aspiring Angel takes on a wicked werewolf in this action-packed all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Horror of the Hyena Woman in paperback and e-readers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis Legacy. The sorority secrets of the goddess next door are revealed in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis Legacy in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.